Here are the next two consonant sounds we're going to master. D, as in do, and T, as in to. So this pair, like many other consonant sounds we've covered, features one voiced and one unvoiced sound. Which one do you think is the voiced sound? Have a listen. D, T. That's right, it is the first sound. Put your hand over your throat and produce the sound. D, D, as in do. The second sound is unvoiced. T, T. Okay? Now, what part of the mouth do we use? How do we use the tongue to actually produce these sounds? What we do is, the tongue is pushed up against the top of the mouth, just behind the teeth, and we block the air. Suddenly then, we pull the tongue down to release the air, and this is what produces the sound. So you have a try. Feel your tongue, okay? Feel where it is in your mouth and notice what you do to produce the sound. D, T, D, as in do. T, as in to. Can you notice the tongue? So it's the same for both sounds, remember? With these pairs, the voiced and unvoiced is the only difference. The shape of the mouth and the position of the tongue is exactly the same. D and T. Okay, that's one big difference between the sounds. The other one is, like I mentioned before, the force of the sounds. So the voiced one, if you can put your hand over your mouth again and feel your breath of air, D, D, D. You can just feel a little bit of air on your hand. But if you try the second sound, T, T, there's much more air. Okay, so the second sound, the unvoiced, is more forceful. That's another difference. Now, let's move on to the first target sound practice word list. For the voiced D sound. This one's quite simple because the symbol on the left is the letter D and the spelling is always D. Sometimes double D, but usually a single D letter. So listen and repeat after me. Day, door, drive, puddle, did, rained, amazed, Thailand, dolphin. Right, so like we covered in a previous lecture, the sounds in English when they come at the beginning of a word are sometimes slightly different to when they're at the end of a word. So the D sound, when it comes at the beginning, it's very forceful. Day, D-A-Y, day. When it's at the end of a word, slightly less forceful. For example, rained, R-A-I-N-E-D, rained. So we don't push out as much force as when it's at the beginning of a word. You see? So the end is slightly less forceful. Let's move on to the second target sound practice list. This is for the unvoiced sound T. So again, the symbol is simply the T and the spelling is always T. Again, sometimes double T, but usually just T. So listen and repeat. T, tie, toe, toast, taste, letter, water, heart, minute, tomato. Okay, something I want to highlight about the t sound is that in British English, the t sound is usually pronounced quite strongly in every single position. However, in American English, the t sound, especially when it comes in the middle of a word, when there are some vowels either side of it, they change the t sound to a d sound. Let me give you an example. So in British English, we say water, W-A-T-E-R. For example, a glass of water. So the T sound is very clear and distinct. In American English, however, very often the T sound in water becomes a D sound, like a D. It becomes water, water, a glass of water. Can you see the difference? So this is a feature of British English. The T sound is always very, very clearly pronounced. Water, or for example, letter, L-E-T-T-E-R. In American English, this would be letter, letter. In British English, the T is clearly pronounced. Letter, letter. So this is one big difference between British and American English. Now let's move on to the minimal pairs list. Very, very important. On the left we have the D voiced sound, and on the right the T unvoiced sound. So listen and repeat after me. Do, toe. Bad, bat. Send, scent. Dry, try. Ride, write. Dears, tears. Right, I hope the difference between the two sounds is very clear now. I hope you can really start to produce them nicely. Remember, the t, the unvoiced sound in British English, is always very distinct. It's very clearly pronounced. So just keep this in mind when you're uttering the t sound. Now let's move on to the target sounds in use. The first sentence is targeting the D sound. Let's have a look. Repeat after me. David had a bad dream about a dragon. And sentence 2 is targeting the T sound. Tony turned on the TV to watch tennis. Okay, and sentence number 3 is a mix of the two. Don't drive too fast because it's dangerous. You might have an accident. So there we have it, the D and the T sounds. Download all the extra resources that I provided for you so that you can master these two sounds. See you in the next lecture.